Thank you very much for the opportunity to speak on this panel, and of course, Engineer Taufik, thanks for Tarek. Okay, Tarek, yeah, we know each other for a long time. Let me just start by saying that it's very comfortable to be in this environment of like-minded people. I think what we heard this morning across all the sessions, many of these concepts and reflections will be repeated. Because we are among ourselves, and that's what I grasped from the previous sessions, very much like-minded. We do believe in multilateralism. I was very pleased as a representative of the United Nations to hear that UN is part of the solution, very reaffirming. And of course, I want to make the point in the beginning that United Nations is not a DFI, right? We are not a financing organization. We have, all these powerful guys next to me, the heads of multilateral development banks. UN is, more and less of all this. So, going back to the development finance, and I will briefly speak on how the UN sees development finance, and being here, based in Egypt, leading the UN system in Egypt, I will also touch base on a few areas where we as UN we believe we have a comparative advantage, and I think we can do better in partnering with the DFIs. So first, a few numbers for your attention with regard to the development finance. The recent analysis, specifically OECD, mentioned that the projection is that the ODA, official development assistance, will fall from 9 to 17% in 2025. And this is on the top of a decline of 9%, which was last year. And the prospects for 2026 and onwards are absolutely not clear. And we see this across the board. It's not just USAID that cut funding, but across the board of the development agencies, we see a decline in the development assistance. For Africa, the implications are really profound, really profound. They were really depending a lot on development assistance. And the gap on an annual basis is around 760 billion per year. And here I will come to the UN in Egypt. United Nations in Egypt has 26 UN agencies that work across the entire spectrum of sustainable development, partnering with the civil society, with the think tanks, supporting the government is achieving the sustainable development goals. The cuts for this year and 2024, 2025 are 87 million. 87 million less funding for the United Nations to, do its program and projects, which is around 13% of the overall envelope of the UN. And it's not that much about, the amount. What is important, where the cuts are, in which areas. Because the implication, if you do the analytics, is for the most vulnerable, regretfully. When the development finance decreases, it usually hits the most vulnerable. And again, talking from UN point of view, the three major vulnerable groups that are already feeling the impacts of all these programs and projects that had been stopped are first, migrants, refugees, and host communities. That's the first group. And here you have, huge vulnerabilities. The analysis that we make point that this group is, among the most vulnerable. And when you cut the development finance, they're the ones that suffer most. Food insecurity, lack of livelihoods, Million of them got, disconnected health services. And we, as you know, is the UN and the NGOs that are at the forefront of supporting those most vulnerable population with development finance, of course. The government is taking over with the new asylum law, but it's not yet there. So when it comes to supporting the most vulnerable, including the host communities, for the time being, it's mainly UN and many of our agencies were relying, to a great extent on funding from the US. UNHCR alone, 37% of their funding was coming from US. So huge impact. Second group that was impacted, women and girls. And that's very regrettable because the country is doing well. There is a political will on that file to empower women and girls. Regretfully, files like violence against women and girls were the ones that were hit most. And children and youth, and here I will again point to the children and youth of the refugees, including the refugees from Gaza that were deprived from learning opportunity, distance learning. UNICEF was hit hard in this regard, and they had to basically stop some of these programs. So the takeaway is very stark. You have a huge demand, and you have, less and less supply. So the mismatch is huge. So as UN, where do we see, and how do we see, because we promised Dr. Abla to do solutions, right? That's, our promise. So where do we see the areas where we can do better? Again, talking from the point of view of UN, we need to be much more focused. We need to prioritize, we need to reflect with the government where are the priorities and where is the value added of UN. Because with a lot of money, we usually go to many projects. And these projects are small-scale projects across the entire spectrum. More and more UN, that's what the United Nations should do, more and more joint programs coming together as agencies, trying to focus on fewer but more impactful areas, and again, going back to the main principle, which is what's the impact on the people, right? That's the most important thing, because whatever we do, if it doesn't translate, if it doesn't land, in improving people's life and dignifying, their life, it will not last long. Right? It will not last.
It raises more questions than answers.
Yeah, exactly. And because development finance usually goes to these most vulnerable, to these areas, the government is more focused on the big infrastructure.
Yeah, but we need to distinguish between aid and subsistence and development finance.